Well, happy time zone, sports fans. Welcome to 90 Infinity 5 of Sports Up. My name is Joey T. Badger, your voice for live baseball, here to present. I will not be part of the show, but I am happy to host the Midseason Power Ranking Review, where we check our hubris together as a family. This is Blaseball News Network, Pride and Joy, the gem, usually hosted by Dan Hahn. Dan Hahn cannot do it this week, so excited to see him host in the future. But hey, we have some wonderful talent here tonight to talk about Blaseball, talk about everything. But first off, everyone say hi, chat, because chat's here too. Chat, let's make this show fun. So thank you all for being here for this event. Again, I don't think I'm allowed to do the Blaseball Network power rankings because I'll quickly show my rankings. Here we are. I had the audacity to have the Atlantis Georgias be the #1 team, and I put the Flowers at the bottom. I was wrong. Well, luckily we have a bunch of experts here, and we in chat, as you're saying, I know you can say hi to chat and hi to me. Unfortunately, the firefighters, yeah. Let's leave some Fs in the chat for the firefighters, please. But we have our good friend at Blaseball News Network. We have Luckey Haskins. Luckey, welcome.
Hello.
Welcome to your show, the Midseason Power Rankings.
Hey, wait a minute, you're not Dan.
I'm not. You found me out. Really quickly, roast me for my take on how wrong I was for the power rankings. You have 20 seconds.
I don't know that I can roast you, because when we talk about experts, we're going to see a lot of things that are probably not exactly right, even with our contributors and experts. Even in aggregating, you know what? You've contributed so often, Joey, and it turns out the power rankings as a whole work together, but everyone has some really embarrassing choices. So you're good company here in good company.
Luckey, thank you so much. And everyone, please make sure you say hi, Luckey, in the chat. And as everyone comes on, please make sure you say hi, their names as well. But Luckey, I'm going to pop off screen because this is not my show. This is your show. So I'll let you host away. Feel free to yell at me if you need anything from me, chat. I'll be right around the corner, but please enjoy the smooth sounds of Luckey Haskins and the Midseason Power Ranking Review. Bye.
Why, thank you very much, Joey T. Badger, and hello to everyone joining in and catching this on demand later on. I'm Luckey Haskins, work with Blaseball Prospectus and the Blaseball News Network to bring you your Season 18 Midseason Power Ranking Review. And today we have 3 guests with us, and as I say their names, they're going to pop on, and every guest is going to give a little bit about themselves. So, to start off, our returning guest to the Midseason Power Ranking Review show, Jade. Please say hello to Jade. Hi, Jade.
Hi.
How are you doing, and where do folks know you from or can find you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm on. You might have seen me on Twitter at Not a Credit. I do stuff with BNN too. I post very hot takes on Twitter. So I mostly cover the Lovers. Sometimes other teams too, but that's my area of specialty, I guess you could say.
Excellent. And then we also have joining us tonight, first time on the show, Evie.
Hi, I'm Evie.
Hello.
I run the Tacos Twitter, except for like the past week, but usually.
Is there a reason you're not running it this past week?
Yeah, I'm dealing with really bad burnout.
This is fair.
I'm trying not over Blaseball just because of university.
Yes.
Yeah, trying to wrap up classes so then I can actually focus on the things I care about.
And that's a very important thing for anyone who's involved with Blaseball or the fandom or the community. It's important to make sure that you're checking you stay hydrated and making sure to check on your burnout. And then finally, we have Aaron. Hello, Aaron.
Hi, Luckey. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. So, what is your connection to the great game of Blaseball?
Well, I'm a big Moist Talker fan, and we have certainly had an interesting season there.
Yeah.
And you might have also seen me in the SIBR Discord and the Milo Confluence.
I don't think I've heard that particular pronunciation.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit of an underground one. There's a couple of fun ones.
Well, welcome everybody, and welcome to everyone in chat and joining us currently. So I'm going to run through our topics quickly, and then we'll get to our first one. We're going to start, after I run through this, talking about the Philly Pies. We have estimated them, and the estimations seem to be pretty dead on. We're then going to jump a bit of a lightning round to check around with the rest of the Mild High, as BNN had some difficulty agreeing on the lovers or the mechanics, where they should go in the rankings. We're going to talk about some fax machines and segue into the Mild Low, and ask, okay, are the Magic Goo or are the Fridays going to stay back on top after coming off their runner-up season last season? Now, as we go back, we're going to look at the other low, the Wild Low, and see how it's very clustered. And I believe we may have some hot takes from some of our guests in relation to the Wild Low and the Wild League in general, before we jump over to the Wild High to talk about the Tigers and the Georgias. And teams. My own personal firefighters are, a thing. And then, of course, we're going to go to our final hubris to pick the finals. So, with that in mind, let's start off with our first topic. Jade, we've got the Philly Pies in the rivals in the division with the Lovers. Had that 19-game winning streak, if I remember the correct count. So, how did you estimate the Pies this season?
Yeah, I think I estimated the Pies at around the same point as everybody else did. They were the clear favorites going into the season, and they're on track to have the best record in baseball history. So even with Nerd Out of the Shell, which hurt their rotation marginally, they're just still so powerful across the board that at this point the mild league playoff picture is just the Pies and then like 8 other teams. So the Pies are existent, and they also have they also do have, and I can't let people forget about this. They have probably the most powerful modifier in Blaseball, Affinity for Crows, which under today's standards would never exist.
That is a very true statement. So Evie, I know that you're a little newer to some of the stuff like in the Mild High. What are your thoughts on the fact that whenever birds happen, Pies are 50% better at everything?
Oh, I did not know that was how Affinity for Crows worked, and that sounds like it shouldn't exist.
Well, it's so like, a lot of teams have overperform various things. Like whenever something is beneficial, you overperform. If it's bad, you underperform, which are 20% buffs. So, and the thing is too is how do we know? I don't know if I'll tell this to the group. Do we know how often the weather modifiers will increase specific types of weather?
Most of the other weather modifiers are typically have a second activation requirement, like high pressure for the moist talkers requires that a runner be on base for their 25% boost, but Pies, on the other hand, they just get that 50% no matter what every single player in bird weather, and that is a wild boost for them to be playing around with, even with bird weather being relatively rare as it is.
And now, do we know how often bird weather will show up when someone's stadium, their ballpark, says like, because normally you have your weather pluses, and it's one arrow. Last season, certain teams started to get 2 arrows up. Do we know how often that'll cause the weather to show up?
There's a little bit of preliminary research into this. It seems to be roughly a 10% boost for each arrow. So Pies are maybe looking at around a 20% boost, but it's
okay. Yeah.
It's very unknown. Lots of unknowns there.
Now, yes, to look at chat, yes, the Pies have birds plus or birds up, or I'm looking at their ballpark right now. It's the double modification, not just 1, but 2.
Don't worry, if they get it 3 more times, then the birds will be preserved as legendary and removed from the game.
Perfect. Beautiful. The dream.
We'll be able to go to the gift shop and buy some bird plushies for our little players.
That is a delightful tie-in. Now, has everyone checked out the gift shop? I'm going off a bit of a tangent here. Has anyone checked? What are you seeing in the gift shop that is catching your attention?
Okay.
I'll start with you, Jade.
Yeah. So there's one thing in the gift shop that is catching my eye, and I know I told Evie about this earlier. The fact that just the Dale's gift shop wish list. So they have two things that catch my eye. One of those things is the fact that one of their wish list preferences is for a Chorby Soul replica, which seems very strange until you look at their other modifier that they want, which is life of the party. So
They already
They
have.
want
Yeah.
to party twice
They-
as hard.
right now, the Dale are at about 500. They're like, they have a pretty even record. So I'm not positive if this is what they're planning on doing. But regardless, if they manage to pull this off, then they'll get Chorby Soul, which will make their team just worse in general. And they'll also get double life of the party. So they'll get into party time and they'll party even more.
Yeah.
Two
I
party,
saw-
two
That's,
Chorbius.
Good news about the current screen.
What's that?
Dale have switched over from Chorby Soul replica to bargain bin and handcrafted cannon drops. So
Yes, cannon
some
drops.
some good news for Dale fans there. They are
Yeah.
going to stay safe for at least a little while longer.
that is good.
That's really a tragedy. I was really hoping that what I wanted every team to go for Chorby Soul, and that collective increase in eDensity should be enough to pull us to Blaseball hell.
I'm curious too. Do you think that eDensity and stuff will come along with the replicas? This is complete speculation.
I mean,
I mean, what is Chorby Soul without their eDensity?
Chorby Soul still has the same Soul Scream. They didn't take away the Soul Scream like they did with York or Nagomi when they got chomped too much.
Yeah.
They just Chorby still has that, so I don't see why Chorby wouldn't have the eDensity that we're used to them having.
But there's still big question marks about how these replicas are going to work.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, are our teams going to be rewarded York, Silk 2 and 3? We don't know yet.
I don't know.
Are
but-
the replicas going to come with some weird modification?
Yeah.
I don't know, but I'm
Presumably,
really
but-
looking forward to logging into BlaseballZero.com.
Oh, goodness.
Speaking of eDensity, well, I think seems like a good segue to talk about. We've been talking a lot about eDensity. So I got a question for Evie.
Yeah.
When people talk about eDensity, what are your thoughts on that? How much of eDensity do you know? Like, do you know how a team gets eDensity?
I learned about 25 minutes ago that apparently it's fluid dynamics.
Very true, Cyber.
Yeah,
Sibber.
there was a white paper that Sibber published that I didn't read because I don't read. What I know is eDensity is very complicated. So, and I feel like that is a very good summary of eDensity, honestly. Like, you could say more about it, but it is just very complicated.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
So Aaron, as someone with Cyber, we'll go with Cyber for the moment. What can you tell us about what constitutes eDensity? What adds to it? What takes away from it?
Sure. So the very brief footnotes version of it is good things add eDensity and bad things take away eDensity. So things that very much contribute to eDensity: wins, scoring runs, your players' stars are all huge contributors to eDensity. wins and runs being the main factor that manages to sink teams. But we're also seeing a few teams that are being sunk from having attractors as part. Attractors are a huge part of eDensity. They're worth about 130 eDensity apiece, or about 13 wins worth. So it's
Oof.
an enormous amount
and
to add on.
And it includes your shadows, right? So like if you have an attractor in your shadows.
It also includes all shadow players, all their stars, all their modifiers. It all adds on to your eDensity. Anything that makes your team a bit better is more eDensity.
It really makes sense that wins add to eDensity because they are physical objects. They do sit in your stadium somewhere.
Right, and stadiums also contribute to eDensity. Every single mod you add to it, and the stats grandiosity, fortification, and filthiness also add a huge amount of eDensity.
And the reason that I think this came up is we started to see, I love that.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we can see the Boston Flowers here right now, and we can see just how much all those wins are sinking them down. And even just Chorby Shorts, one of their attractors, is almost as much as their run total.
And this came up too because as we were discussing topics earlier today, when we looked at the mild low, besides being that kind of cluster that Jade was talking about before, where you have the pies on top of the mild league, and a couple teams in the mild high, and then 4 teams in the mild low. We saw so many teams in the mild low gain that red dot early, like before we even got halfway through the season. And as we looked at it, it seems like each of them has different reasons why their eDensity got big. So like the Charleston Shoe Thieves, to what Aaron was saying about your attractors in the shadows. The Magic have, because if I'm not mistaken, foul balls add to the filthiness of a ballpark.
Yes, it does. They smell foul.
Well, and they have Oh No Blood.
Yeah, and that generates a lot of foul balls.
And then, the Baltimore Crabs also have a lot of championships, which add to it. And so, question to Jade, and to anyone, but let's start with Jade. So we see the mild low just clustered so much. How do you think, if at all, that the consumer attacks are going to feed into who gets into the playoffs?
Yeah, right now it's really hard to tell, just because so far we've had technically 2 consumer attacks, one on the Worms and one on the Magic. Unless another consumer attack happened while I wasn't looking because I'm on the stream. Because right now, so the Magic, Fridays, Crabs, and Shoe Thieves are the teams with the dot right now in mild low. And right now, like the Shoe Thieves, unfortunately, probably most likely gonna see another season without a natural playoff berth. I mean, I know that they like getting into the wild card, and
they're good at that.
Havoc there, so I'm not gonna totally count them out. But at least for a natural berth, I don't see that happening. But the Crabs, Fridays, and Magic are all vying for the crown and mild low, and yeah, like I said earlier, the mild league as a whole is just a huge cluster with the pies at the top and then nothing else certain. So these consumer attacks, depending on how frequently they happen or on what teams or players they hit, could definitely affect which teams out of the Magic, Fridays, Crabs, and Mints, who are also in it, could see a big effect on which of those teams have the edge over the others. And also just generally, if we end up having 1 or 2 mild low representatives in the playoffs, because we very much could only have 1 with the state of mild high as well.
Well, and that's a good point you bring up. And Evie will bring this one to you.
Rip.
Oh no, I lost Aaron. Well, hopefully she'll be back. So question to you, Evie. In the mild high, it's been a weird, like everyone estimated the pies, The BNN rankings were pretty. The standard deviation was real low. Almost everyone said Pies number one. But the thing is we're only a couple seasons removed from the Stakes winning a championship, and the core mechanics just busted out of the gate early this year. So Core and Dallas are also there. Do you think no one in the Mild High has a red dot? Do you think we get how many teams do you think get into the playoffs from the Mild High naturally?
I wouldn't know because I run the Tacos Twitter and not any of the Mild High Twitters. You're lucky that I can remember that some teams are on Mild High. Yeah, this is a better question for Jade, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, I stay my lane, which is writing funny tweets and coming with just really wacko hot takes about Blaseball that Aaron is no longer here to fact check.
Oh no.
There's nothing stopping me from making a conspiracy about Blaseball that can't be verified.
So Jade, I'm going to bring this to you because one of the things that was interesting about the power rankings, when we look at it, we do like that deviation of, how all over the place were people's ranks, right? And this season, the three teams that had the biggest discrepancy in where people ranked them were the Firefighters, which we'll get to, and the other two were the Lovers and the Mechanics. Aaron, are you okay? You're not scattered?
I should be okay.
Okay.
I'm in it.
From elsewhere, good?
Return from elsewhere was fine.
So, and I'll open this to you after I talk to Jade, Aaron. Core Mechanics, Dallas Stakes. No red dots, but they're in the same division as the Pies. Who gets those kind of 3 and 4 spots in the playoffs this year? Do we get 2 from the Mild High? Do we split? What do you think?
Yeah. So Mild High is very interesting as well because it's like you've got the Garages and the Mills who are both very confidently still recovering from the hit of having Chorby Soul on your team. And I guess starting with the Stakes, because that's the easiest one to explain. The Stakes are still good, definitely. They don't quite have the team that won them in Internet Series because obviously some stuff's going to happen with elections and just Blaseball happening. It's going to vary your performance if you don't do much about it. And a relatively unproductive election, like they still got some stuff done, but they tried some things to develop themselves more, and not a lot of it really helping. So the stakes aren't quite as good as they were before. As for the mechs.
So wait, are you saying that the stakes have never been lower, or I guess not as high?
What?
The stakes could not be lower.
So thank you. Okay.
If I never return to the stream, you guys know why.
Okay. So, ignoring that and moving on. The mechs. So the mechs are kind of a surprising case to me because me and everyone else kind of counted them out. When looking at them now, I cannot see how I didn't catch the things that make this a good team. Because you have a lineup that is actually not bad. It's like, I think it's slightly above average in comparison to the rest of the league.
It's solid is the word I would use. Just
it's
solid.
Yeah, it doesn't have many strengths, but it doesn't have many weaknesses either, and that works for consistency. The rotation is slightly less consistent, although 2 of their pitchers are still very good, and there's still that odd one out that has lost them quite a few games, and it really makes me think, like, if this player was replaced with a better player, like how good would the mechs be? How much better would they be able to perform without those losses? And at this point, like, it kind of concerns me slightly for the future of Mild High. That if things happen, then the Mechs could be the next dominant team.
So, Aaron, question for you is one of the things we're noticing is that so many of the contributors to the power rankings had the mechanics all over the place. Literally went from like someone ranked them 4th, someone ranked them 23rd. So why do you think people look at the mechs and have completely opposite views on where they would end up?
One of the big things that stands out about the mechs is that it's hard to look at their lineup and their rotation and identify aces, which people tend to gravitate towards, especially when they're doing things. They only have one batter that's above 5 stars, which is basically an anomaly at this point. So most teams are running with like multiple 5 stars, a 6-star. I think there's probably a 7-star I'm forgetting about even. When you have that relatively low batting stars, but still overall solid lineup with just iron wall defense that the mechs have, like, it is very much a team that's easy to underestimate. Excuse me.
And then there's another team that I need to touch on because I do a lot for this team, and I am a fan of this team, who was on the opposite end of the spectrum, kind of. The Lovers this season were an easy team to overestimate, and I was one of those people who overestimated them. Because this is the first season ever that the Lovers have had a good offense.
Yeah, they've always been known for their pitching.
Yeah, and now their pitching is their pitching isn't, like, they have all of their bases covered except for their pitching.
I mean, King Roland scored 2.4 unruns against the Stakes.
King Roland is
still lost.
Very good. Thank you very much. King Roland is great. I'm obligated to say that. But the thing with the Lovers is that the thing with the Lovers pitching is that they have the highlights. We have Sanford Garner, who was pretty good, and after a blood drain earlier this season is even better. Montgomery Mullick, who's pretty all right, also very close to being a great pitcher, and King Roland, who, to say the least, has variable performance. And then you've got Helga Britton, Sylvia Winter, and Kara Tobin. And the thing about these three is that star-wise, they all look bad, but they're all heavy overperformers. We knew this bringing them out of the shadows, and we thought they'd do better, but and so did a lot of other people who ranked them high. But
yeah, they were. I have another team that was just people either high or low on. Evie, it looked like you had something that you also wanted to add about the mechanics or Lovers.
No, I wasn't. I was checking Twitch chat.
That's fair. That's exactly fair. So one of the things too that when we were talking about the mechanics, the fact that there's one of the pitchers that has lower stars, mechanics were one of the teams that has Fax Machine, and we've seen Fax Machine in play with the garages, with the Mills. Mills had the infamous Castillo Turner getting a shadow fax, which was unexpected.
The tacos, Rust in Shadows, yummy Elliot.
Yeah, the tacos, the Moist Talkers as well. In fact, when on Blaseball Prospectus, when I mentioned the fax machine, Moist Talkers like, oh yeah, we're basically kind of using it like a little bit of a rotation to maybe get some buffs. So what do we think about, because I know whether or not Wrecking Ball passes or not, what do we think about the mechanics of the fax machine are going to be looking like as seasons progress? What do you think, Aaron?
Honestly, I love the fax machine. The fax machine is my new favorite mechanic of the game. I hope it is so much fun to, even if you're in a good place, to see one of your pitchers get faxed. It is a whole lot of fun knowing that they are getting those bonuses, they are improving, and that we are even seeing some new players that have never been outside the shadows finally come to the light, even if it is literally to be faxed 2 games later.
Well, you got to think about the upsides of faxing your player 2 days later, because if you fax your player 2 days later, that's 2 days worth of showing up on the field that you can write lore about, as well as the fact that they're out of the shadows, meaning that you can write lore about them in the first place.
Speaking of Evie, Michelle Sportsman.
Michelle Sportsman certainly is a player.
That's a player that really does just pitch, huh?
She certainly pitches. I've never seen a player that pitches before like Michelle Sportsman.
So yeah, the Tacos, are one of those teams that, as we talk about, we have teams that have your standard 9 and 5 lineup and rotation. We have teams that have gotten larger, like the Garages, I think the Sushi Thieves. And then we have teams that have been contracted, intentionally or unintentionally, such as the Magic or the Tacos.
The Tacos are really just like, they did it before it was cool by just getting absolutely annihilated by the Nut.
I mean, and it was intentional, but now they've gotten 2 more shelled players still. And how are you feeling about Fax Machine with McKinley Otten and Michelle Sportsman?
Well, one of the reasons why Fax Machine was a great play at the time was because we had a good 4-pitcher rotation with Michelle Sportsman and Yummy Elliott, Vito Kravitz, and Ivy. And that sort of got a bit disrupted with Ivy becoming the world's greatest 1-point-something star batter for the Georgias.
Really earned your hot pitch summer there.
Yeah.
That was such a mess.
And so our great 4-pitcher rotation has become a very solid 3-pitcher rotation, and then an otter that we drew lots of cool pictures of.
I am a fan of otters, so
And so, that is something that needs to be corrected for the Tacos to be better. As well as the fact that just the Tacos, which used to be an incredibly great team, making it to the finals multiple times just to get swept, now are struggling to make it to the finals at all. Part of that is because Wild Low is just absurdly good. And the other part of it is just that when you have a team as small as the Tacos, little changes in performance, like replacing 5-star Sexton Ware with slightly less stars Devin Wise, or removing the strong core of your 4-pitcher rotation, kind of ends up hurting the team a lot. Because even though it's a small drop in quality, it has a lot stronger repercussions across the entire team. That's when it's that small.
Yeah, and question for you, Jade, because you've been on the show when we've talked about that before too, about what's going to happen with those short rotation teams, and when when the BNN contributors did all their ranks, I'm assuming you saw this too, but Wild Low was just really clustered around that, from like spot number 2 to spot number 12. Pretty much almost the entirety of the Wild Low was in there. How do you think that affects things like the Tacos or other teams, the Sunbeams, which were expected to be resurgent this season?
Yeah, Wild Low is another just big cluster of teams that even the Sunbeams would probably be good in most of if they'd been playing in other leagues. But just the fact that when you play Blaseball in Wild Low, you're 50% of your performance as a team during the regular season is just your schedule, and basically just how many games you play in Wild Low versus how many games you play in Wild High. And you have teams like you have some teams that aren't so lucky and are forced to play games against Wild Low, and this bleeds into Wild High too. This is why there's this is why Wild High is just regressed into just only having one playoff spot every season, because there's an obligatory, you have to have a playoff spot from each sub league.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting too. There always seems to be the one team when Wild High is, it's obligatory. But like looking at last year, what was interesting is the only time the Tacos lost last year in the playoffs was against the Firefighters. The Firefighters were one of the few teams, the Wild High, to take on a lot of the Wild Low teams and have a pretty decent record. That's not the case this year.
Yeah.
The Wild High has an atrocious, except for one team. There is one team that just eats the Wild Low for breakfast.
Yeah.
Just tears it raw. And that's the Hades Tigers.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So, Aaron, what have you looked at the schedules to see, do we know what teams we think are going to benefit from difficult schedules or easier schedules in the Wild Low or Wild High?
It really is a difficult question. It really just comes down to who's going to get lucky and get to beat on the Firefighters for a little while longer before the season ends.
And I feel so bad for the Firefighters because they did everything to fix the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
And they had that nice, their lineup was structured nicely. They were looking pretty good, and then Carmelo Plums for Gooby Balson, and then Nick Blaze. And because I was looking at that earlier today, and their rotation, their ERAs were all between 3 and 4. Their quality starts were third in the Wild High. Their quality starts were better than half the Wild League.
Yeah, it's an amazing rotation. It's really doing well. But the Chicago Firefighters are just suffering on run generation. And the level of consistency is not there at the moment. They really need to bring it up.
It's just one of those where I remember way back when they had that 9-win streak to open the season, and I was like, wait, did them optimizing their lineup really do that much? And now that their lineup's been unoptimized,
yeah. I can kind of say something about this because the Firefighters are currently in a situation that I'm very used to as a Lovers fan. I remember back in season 11, season 11 onward basically, but season 11, I remember the BNN Power Rankings, and just about everybody else was so high on the Lovers because the Lovers had basically all of their weaknesses in their rotation covered. They had Jalen Hot Dog Fingers in their rotation. They had the best rotation in the league. People were so high on them, and some people even went as far to say that they were going to be the next Baltimore Crabs. But then they were 500, and they didn't do that well, and they continued to not do well. And that's because at this point in time, it doesn't really matter how good your rotation is if you don't have the offense. It doesn't matter how many runs you can stop if you can't score and win games. So
I still think that the Lovers could be the next Baltimore Crabs if you really stretch the definition of what you mean by the next Baltimore Crabs.
A red team.
I'm by Baltimore Crabs, I meant discipline era Baltimore Crabs. If we're talking the Baltimore Crabs, as in the current Baltimore Crabs, and the Lovers are doing a great job of it.
Well, let's to that.
It's really
point.
weird to have a Baltimore Crabs that does not struggle on run generation.
Yeah, I mean they're within one game of the playoffs at the moment. But speaking of, when we talk about discipline era Crabs, because I look at the Hades Tigers, and they're not a team. They've had a couple of rebuilding seasons, but they've got their 3 championships. It seems like every time they have a rebuilding year, they bounce back, and here they are again, the number 2 team in the entire league. And part of it you could say is the fact they're in the Wild High, but they're playing a ton of Wild Low, which is a solid win. So, what do we think is the future of? Let's go with both like the Tigers and the Wild High. It's like we got the Georges coming up, but do the Tigers sustain or are they going to keep bouncing? Because unlike the Crabs of Disciplinera, they aren't like a sustained team that every season is always good.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of like they go down hard and they come back up hard, and they're back and forth. But when they're in contention, they're in contention. When they're out, just out.
I want the Hades Tigers to stay good, because one of the great things about old good Hades Tigers is that there was a lot of fan art of them, and that's the reason why I got into Blaseball, because all that fan art just made me simp really hard for some hot people. And I want to simp for more hot people. And I think you can say that there's a very direct correlation between the amount of simping in Blaseball and how good the Hades Tigers are.
Yeah, that's real science right there.
I was going to say, well, Cyber says that's science, so.
That's cybermetrics right there.
Thank you, Joey. I mean, to that point, someone, was it of Hirota Wilcox, or was it Dunlop Figueroa, where someone did Mike Mignola style art that the commissioner posted this season? I thought it was a Hades Tigers player.
I would have missed that.
I don't know. I literally got into Blaseball by simping for Landry Violence and Jessica Telephone. So,
Evie, that's how you got me into Blaseball. You just info dumped me tons of fan art until I just submitted.
That's the only way to get into Blaseball.
Well, you know what? You're paying it back to me, because you spent the whole entire hour and a half before the stream info dumping me about Wild Low and the Flowers, and helping me build this conspiracy theory about Chorby Short.
So I found it. At the Bars tweeted that they did a Hirota Wilcox art in the style of Mike Mignola, and it's just gorgeous. And the commissioner retweeted it. Unfortunately, I don't have it on my laptop, but oh my God, yeah, we're talking about like fan art that makes you go like, maybe I like the Tigers. It is just gorgeous.
The Tigers was going to be the team I picked before I just randomly picked the Tacos, just because of the amount of simping.
Oh, yes, there it is. Thank you.
Oh, that is beautiful.
Oh, yeah. I saw that. Go ahead.
Speaking about my conspiracy theory about Chorby Short, please give me a question about the Flowers so I can go on an unhinged rant about Chorby Short.
Well, let's see. Let me get some lead in. All right, let's see. So the Boston Flowers are currently 4th in the Wild Low at 32 wins. They're only one game behind the LA Unlimited Tacos. They've got Chorby Short, the attractor, the famed foul ball artist when she was a hitter. What do you think, Evie?
Jade and I were wondering why the Flowers were just middle of the pack when they seem Jay, what did you say? Because I don't keep up with BNN. What was the ranking for the Flowers?
Ranking for the Flowers was, off the top of my head, 14. It was bottom 10 for sure.
It is 14. They were ranked at the bottom of the Wild Low. Now, again, it's Wild Low. The worst team in the Wild Low was ranked 14th. So that's where they're ranked this season. Yep.
So the Flowers have been, I think, doing better than that, and based on Jade's 1 hour and an hour and a half info dump from before this, it's because of the fact that the Flowers were probably underrated on their rotation, because they looked at Chorby, saw attractor stars, like pseudo stars, and they were like, yeah, so that's not a player. And Jay dug into the forbidden knowledge and was like, actually, Chorby Short is pretty good. And this is tied into my incredibly fact-based conspiracy theory that Chorby Short is the sole reason why the Flowers are doing so well in the first place. If you ignore all the games that Chorby Short has lost when pitching, Chorby Short has won every single game she's pitched.
That's definitely true.
Chorby Short has had an impressive just pitching record, even if you do include the games that she's lost. And more importantly, Chorby Short has prestige. Chorby Short is a player that strikes fear into the hearts of other players. And I can completely understand the fact that if you were to play against Chorby Short, who is pitching, you would just give up. Like, the reason why Chorby Short has 7.6 pitching stars isn't because they're fake stars. Like, Chorby Short's actual star ranking is way lower, but those 7.6 stars don't mean nothing. That's the amount of stars that Chorby Short strikes fear into. It's not a representation of how good Chorby Short actually plays. It's a representation of how good she plays, considering how much people just give up against Chorby Short.
I love Evie. You're absolutely right. I love this beautiful, terrifying frog. She is lovely and holds a very special place in my heart. She has been an amazing career as a pitcher so far. Right now, Chorby Short is boasting the Flowers' lowest ERA, 2.6, and it is a really, really solid pitcher, with or without attractor stars.
I mean, that's the thing, and she has 5 shutouts.
Yeah, it is absolutely astounding how well Chorby Short is doing.
Go ahead, Jade.
Yeah, I feel like one of the reasons that people underrated the Flowers so heavily is because, Chorby's there, but think about who Chorby got exchanged for. They exchanged Chorby for like Castillo Turner, and Castillo Turner was in a lot of people's eyes one of the only reasons that the Flowers were staying afloat at all, along with the rest of the pretty solid Flowers rotation. And really, other than that, like, people just looked at the Flowers sort of inconsistent offense where half of their lineup is great and the other half not so much, and just thought it wasn't good enough. But really,
if I've learned anything from Jade talking to me like just today, it's that your lineup order matters, and the Flowers have a good lineup order. I did not know this before today.
The reason why the Flowers lineup is good is because, despite its inconsistency, is because all of the good players are clumped in one place. So that provides consistency when they can pop off, and in the innings that they can't because of the more inconsistent side of their offense, their pitching. Their pitching
through Jacob Haynes stretch of the lineup is scary. That's a murderer's row in the lineup.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But the rest of that isn't insane. But their rotation can help justify that because their pitching is just great across the board, even without Castillo Turner. And that still allows them to score more runs than they give up.
So one thing I want to before kind of wrap up the Wild League there is I also wanted Aaron to check on something you mentioned. So when people talk about attractor stars, do we know why or how those happen?
The long of it is
I
once
have a wrong answer.
Okay. Well, let's hear a guess. I just want to get the wrong answer.
I love a wrong answer. Let's go for it.
It's fear. These are all players with renown, and when they have attractor stars, that's because just their name can drive runs.
No.
These are the what if Barry Bonds played baseball without a bat of baseball players.
No, I have a better theory. That's that attractor stars. See, attractor stars are all on hot players. All of the hot attractive.
A very hot frog.
Have the attractor. This is completely unrelated to. Forget that every single baseball player is hot, and just focus on the part that all of the attractors are somehow attractive. So They have more stars because people are like, Awooga. That's it.
Attractor is just another way of saying attractive.
True. Here I thought it was a mathematic or physics joke, but
Well, maybe that's an answer, and Aaron could give one of those potential answers that is backed up with science and data, but is still way more wrong than what Jade and I said.
Sure. So, attractors stars seem to show up after a player has been redacted, crawls out of the secret base, and is batted into a team. They, for whatever reason, have a whole lot more stars than whenever they went in, and their performances do not usually add up to those stars. It's not even really known what factor is actually building up all those extra stars. But it means we have players like 8-star Forrest Best pitching for the stakes. And while they are a good pitcher, they are not 8 stars worth of good pitching. And we have 4-star Brisket Friendo, who is just an abysmal baseball player. Just absolutely abysmal at anything they try to do.
They're not bad at being my friend.
They are a friendo.
They're a friendo. And to that end, a lot of those attractors ended up with mild low teams, like the Shoe Thieves. I got one on the Magic. I got some on the Crabs. So I think that's probably good as we're kind of approaching the top of the hour, is to take a look at that cluster in the mild low again, before we go to our finals hubris. So Aaron, I know this is you wrote the blurb for the Moist Talkers. What are your thoughts on that? Just that cluster of teams.
Well, the gay baby jail remains real. The gay baby jail is real, and it can hurt you. There's not much more to say beyond that. That is a couple of really tough teams who are going to fight it out to the last of them to try and make it to the postseason. None of them are going to easily give it up to the other 3. Magic Goo Fridays are solid. I can definitely see them going head-to-head for the Mild League Championship, but Crabs and Mints also have a lot going for them and could easily pull ahead.
Is it Magic Goo because they don't have enough players to fill out a good? Yeah, pretty much.
I would say, I remember when that word came about. Since then, I think that's a better answer now. Yeah.
Oh.
They that is one of those interesting things where, like I said, we've talked about before. I think Jade was on that show and we talked about, teams like the Tacos intentionally went in, shortened their roster before it was cool. Magic, it didn't happen by choice, but it seems to be working out.
Magic shortened up their roster. They lengthened it a bit, but they shored up on the defense a good bit, and I think that really paid off this season. I think they're maybe not as overwhelmingly dominant as they were last season, but still just really solid there.
Well, I think that also brings us to a good point where we're talking about the playoffs and who's going to make it, is why don't we start and bring out our hubris as we approach the end of the show. All right, so we've got, we can, I don't know if we even know who's going to come out of the mild low because there are so many teams, but let's take a look around. Who do you think is going to make it out of the Mild League Championship? Who's going to make it out of the Wild League Championship? Aaron, I'm going to start with you.
I mean, I got to give Wild League to the Pies. They are avoiding the consumers. They are showing a overwhelming 14-win lead to even the second place in Mild. I got to give the Mild League Championship to them right now.
And for the Wild?
And for Wild, it's definitely a bit tougher, but I'm going to go probably with the Houston Spies. I think they have a lot going for them right at the moment. Good, solid offense and a rotation that doesn't make mistakes right there.
All right, Evie, what do you think? What is your hubris for this? Who do you think ends up in the
Oh
final?
man, this is going to be some hella hubris because I don't keep up with baseball. And so I have no idea what teams are actually good or anything.
Then
I am
make
not
an
engaged.
absolute shot in the dark. It's time for hubris.
I don't keep up enough with Blaseball to deserve my job as the social media manager for the Tacos Twitter. But my shot in the dark is that for the mild league, since people keep on saying that word pies a lot, I think they might be good. And then for the wild league, I may or may not have some bias when I'm talking about this, but I think that the Tacos are going to get swept 0-3.
All right.
I'm just here for dissension.
All right, Jade, what do you think?
Okay, so
Oh, Jade has a really good hot take.
yeah,
Bring a real spicy take.
okay,
Make sure to just not let her forget it on Twitter.
okay. So the hot take isn't who I'm having in the finals, because I'm with Aaron on that. I think it's going to be a Spies Pies finals. But my hot take is thinking that the Pies aren't going to win.
You think the Spies are going to beat out the Pies?
Yeah. And I have a few reasons for this. Number one is that even though the Spies have 10 more losses, that last time I checked, more than 10 losses, about 10 more losses than the Pies. A lot of those losses are to wild low teams, and the Pies have a much easier schedule. They have a breeze of a schedule compared to the Spies stuck in NB baby jail.
The Pies have come over to the Moist Talker Stadium and shook us out for lunch money. It has been an absolute slaughter.
Yeah, and again, the Spies, like you said, Aaron, the Spies are very good across the board. But I do have one last piece of justification. That's that the Spies and the Pies have actually played. They played earlier this season, and the Spies beat the Pies in
2-1.
in a 2-1 series, and their one loss was a decently close game, if I remember correctly. So the Spies win.
Oh wait, don't forget the thing. You said something about a pitcher they played against.
Oh yeah, the Spies did beat Elvis, which is a big deal. The fact that the Spies won it all is surprising with the Pies. Just killer rotation all around, but beating Elvis is a big deal. And I feel like as long as the weather is in their favor, the Spies win.
and here's the thing is, I thought we were supposed to be Spies Pies, and yeah, the thing is I feel it's two of the biggest things, because because I watch a lot of Wild League games, having watched what Psychic Blood can do, especially against pitchers that strike out, like Gabriel Griffith on the Chicago Firefighters, just would have had nearly 20 strikeouts against the Spies, but instead kept oh nope, mind trick on first base, and lost the game. And it's just amazing what that can do to turn around a game against a lot of teams that focus on very ruthless, high strikeout pitchers. That Psychic Blood can really kind of turn it around. And I think to that same point, they don't get the bird weather. The Spies, I think, have an inside shot of beating them. So it's interesting that we all kind of came to that similar conclusion.
No, I came to the wrong conclusion, but I also haven't watched a single baseball game this season.
But here's the thing. It's not wrong yet. That's, tacos and pies is not wrong yet and is not outside the realm of possibility.
Please make sure to tweet very angrily at the Tacos Twitter if my prediction is wrong, because I'm not running the Tacos Twitter this week, so it's not my problem.
Well, that actually brings up, a good segue into our denouement, because we are approaching the end of the hour here at the Midseason Power Ranking Review. And so before we go, I want to make sure that all the folks who are watching are able to check out everyone here and see where their takes go for the rest of the season. So, Evie, go ahead and start us off. Tell us, where can folks find you on the internet?
You can find me at Twitter at QT_dork, or on the Tacos Twitter whenever I recover from burnout. Currently, the Tacos Twitter is being run by Moss Perennial, at Octothorpe's intern, who definitely knows a lot about baseball and can spell every player's name correctly. And every tweet that Moss has put out is incredibly funny, and you should read it. And whenever I do the Tacos Twitter, I make shrimp jokes. You should also follow my girlfriend Jade at Not a Credit, which she will repeat because make sure to give her followers.
So Jade, where can folks follow you?
Yeah, I wonder. Yeah, believe it or not, my Twitter is at Not a Credit. And I'm sure you can find me like on Discord if you try hard enough. And I write articles for BNN sometimes. So yeah.
You can also find me on Discord. I'm just at Dork, and then there's some numbers following it. Do send me unsolicited DMs. I don't care.
All right. Aaron, where can folks find you in your work?
Sure, you can find me on Discord. I'm Aaron Lee Aaron, number 0805. And you can even find me on Twitter at Aaron Lee Aaron.
All right. And I'm Luckey Haskins, who you can find tweeting from the Blaseball Prospectus account weekday mornings. You can also find me at _Haskins or at Haskins_Lucky on Twitter as well. Also hanging around the BNN Discord pretty regularly and on this show. And of course, we have Dan Hahn, who is our normal anchor, but filling in today, Joey T. Badger. There he is. And I imagine if you're here, you know how you can find Joey T. Badger. So yeah, any last words before we sign off for the Midseason Power Rankings for Season 18?
Gay baby jail is real and will hurt you.
I don't know. I have some plans for the Tacos Twitter when I come back, and those plans are mostly also gay. Also, I love my girlfriend.
Aww.
Oh, and you should follow Evie, my girlfriend, at QT.
Please just end the stream and cut us off.
All right, well then, I, Luckey Haskins, will say we're done for this evening. Catch you all later on the BNN on the Twitter, and we'll see how our hubris plays out. Good night, everyone.